The taste of champagne turned bitter on my tongue as I stared at the estate document my father had just proudly displayed at our family's annual business gala. My name, once listed as co-beneficiary alongside my grandfather, had vanished completely. In its place, my brother's name appeared in crisp black ink, the fresh signature at the bottom unmistakably not my grandfather's shaky hand. "A toast to our future," my father announced, his voice carrying across our company's marble atrium. "To Nicholas, who will guide Keller Properties into its greatest era." My brother raised his glass, eyes briefly meeting mine with that familiar mix of triumph and pity. Around us, employees and family friends applauded, unaware of the document that had just shattered my world. My mother squeezed my shoulder, her diamond bracelet catching the light as she leaned in close. "This is how it must be," she whispered, her voice tender but firm. "You were always meant to support, not lead. The sooner you accept that, Laura, the happier you'll be." The champagne flute in my hand remained perfectly steady as something inside me crystallized into certainty. I'd spent 7 years rebuilding this company after nearly losing everything in the market crash. I'd liquidated my own savings, $35,000 that I'd been setting aside for graduate school, to keep employees paid when my father's health had forced him to step back. And this was my reward: erasure. My name is Laura, I'm 32 and a former property development executive. This is the story of how I reclaimed my grandfather's legacy from the family that tried to bury us both. The weight of betrayal followed me home that night to my apartment overlooking the river. I moved mechanically, hanging up the black dress I'd worn specially for what I thought would be my recognition dinner. Instead, I'd witnessed my own professional funeral. For years, I'd managed the company when my father Brian's heart condition had forced him to step back. My mother Olivia had focused on maintaining our family's social position, while my brother Nicholas had been content to enjoy the benefits of our family name without the responsibility. I'd been the one working 14-hour days, negotiating with banks when we nearly went under during the 2015 crash. I'd been the one who noticed the accounting irregularities, the strange transfers that didn't align with our projects. I'd naively believed that loyalty would protect me. That blood meant something. "You should be grateful for the opportunity to learn the business," my father had told me repeatedly. "Few women get such chances." I'd swallowed my pride, grateful to be included at all. Now I understood why they'd kept me close, to use my skills while ensuring I never gained true power. The realization made my apartment feel suddenly foreign, the city lights outside no longer comforting but accusatory. How had I not seen this coming? 3 days later, a plain envelope arrived. No return address, just my name in familiar, shaky handwriting, my grandfather's. Inside was a single handwritten note: Northwest Trust Bank. Box 473. The code is your birthday. My grandfather had been dead for 6 months. The safety deposit box contained 3 things: his real will, dated just 3 weeks before his death, a voice recording on a small dictaphone, and a note that simply read, "Strength is earned, not given." My hands trembled as I pressed play on the recording. "Laura," my grandfather's voice, frail but determined, filled the small bank room. "If you're hearing this, they've done exactly what I feared. Victor and Olivia forced me to change my will. The document they'll present is a forgery. This is the truth: you rebuilt what your father nearly destroyed. Keller Properties is yours, not Nicholas's. Not theirs." I listened to the recording 3 times, each playback cementing my resolve. This wasn't just about money or property, it was about truth. About justice for a man who'd built something meaningful, only to watch his son nearly destroy it through negligence and greed. That night, my apartment door splintered open as I was reviewing the documents. 2 men in dark clothing ransacked the place while I hid in the bathroom, heart pounding against my ribs. They took my laptop, my files, anything that looked important. But they didn't find what mattered most. I'd already scanned everything to a secure cloud account and left the originals in a new safety deposit box at a different bank. The break-in confirmed what I already knew: they were scared. After the intruders finally left, I spent the night at a hotel using cash from my emergency fund, unsure if they might return. The next morning, I received a text message from my father: "Family dinner. Tonight. 8 p.m. Important matters to discuss." The Keller estate stood imposing against the evening sky, windows glowing with warm light that felt like a lie. My mother greeted me at the door, her smile too tight, eyes assessing my empty hands. "Laura, darling. We were worried after we heard about the break-in." "Were you?" I asked, the question hanging between us. Inside, my father and brother waited in the study, a legal document conspicuously placed on the mahogany desk. "This unpleasantness needs to end," my father said without preamble. "Sign this waiver relinquishing any claims to Keller Properties and we'll set you up comfortably. A consulting position. Your own condo. We are still family," Nicholas added, swirling amber liquid in a crystal glass. "This doesn't have to get ugly." My hidden phone recorded every word as I picked up the document, pretending to read it carefully. "One question," I said, setting the paper down without signing. "What happened to grandfather's lawyer? The one who supposedly witnessed his new will?" The room temperature seemed to drop. My mother's hand froze on her necklace. My father's jaw tightened. "Marcus retired to Arizona," my father said too quickly. "Health issues." "Funny," I replied, standing. "Because I spoke with his wife yesterday. She reported him missing 3 days after grandfather died. His office was cleared out. No forwarding address." The silence was deafening. "You don't want to do this," my father said finally, voice low with warning. "I already am," I replied, walking out, their stunned faces burning into my memory. Finding allies proved easier than expected. My grandfather's former accountant, Henry, contacted me after hearing rumors I was asking questions. I'd placed discreet calls to several of grandfather's old contacts, letting them know I was investigating the circumstances of his death. "They tried to buy my silence too," he told me over coffee in a busy diner. "But I kept records. Digital and paper." Henry's evidence revealed a pattern. My father and brother had been siphoning funds from the company for years. My grandfather had discovered it shortly before his death. Through the contact information in my grandfather's personal address book, which I'd kept after helping organize his belongings, I reached Clara, my grandfather's home health aide who had left soon after his funeral. "Your father visited the day before your grandfather died," she said, voice shaking. "They argued. Your grandfather was too weak to leave his bed, but I heard him shout, 'I won't sign it.' The next morning, your father returned with papers and 2 men I'd never seen before. They wouldn't let me in the room. One by one, I gathered witnesses. Former employees who'd been terminated after questioning financial discrepancies. Contractors who'd been pressured to falsify records. The bank manager who'd noticed unusual activity but had been told by my father it was a family matter. Using my savings and a loan secured against my apartment, I hired a lawyer who agreed to work partly on contingency, believing in the strength of my case. Over the next 2 months, we built an airtight case, including medical reports from my grandfather's doctor that I obtained through Clara's assistance. I took everything to Patricia Kent, a prosecutor known for her relentless pursuit of white-collar crime. "This isn't just inheritance fraud," she said after reviewing my evidence. "This is criminal conspiracy, evidence tampering, possibly even," she paused, reviewing the medical reports I'd obtained, "involuntary manslaughter, if we can prove the stress of these events contributed to your grandfather's final heart attack." The indictment came down like thunder. The Kellers, Portland's untouchable real estate dynasty, charged with multiple felonies. My mother collapsed at a charity luncheon when the news broke. My father issued a statement claiming I was mentally unstable, driven by jealousy of my brother's success. Nobody believed him. When I walked into the courtroom that day, it wasn't as a victim seeking justice. It was as the rightful heir reclaiming her legacy. My father, mother, and brother sat at the defense table, their carefully constructed facade crumbling as my grandfather's voice filled the courtroom from the recording. "I, Thomas Keller, being of sound mind, hereby revoke all previous wills and testaments." My mother's face crumpled as the prosecutor methodically laid out their crimes. My father stared straight ahead, shoulders rigid. Only Nicholas looked at me, his expression no longer smug but bewildered, as if he couldn't comprehend how his supposedly submissive sister had orchestrated their downfall. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The media called it the Keller collapse. Every day, I wore one of my grandfather's cufflinks, converted into a simple pendant. A reminder of why I was fighting. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, I felt no triumph, only a profound sense of rightness. The judge's words washed over me as I watched my family's expressions, my father's disbelief, my mother's tears, my brother's anger. The court finds the defendants guilty of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The rightful ownership of Keller Properties is hereby restored to Laura Keller, as stipulated in Thomas Keller's valid will. Reporters surrounded me on the courthouse steps. "Miss Keller, how does it feel to take down your own family?" one shouted. I paused, thinking of my grandfather's note. "This was never about revenge," I replied. "Some legacies are worth fighting for. Some truths demand to be heard." 6 months later, I stood in the renovated headquarters of what was now LTK Properties, Laura Thomas Keller, my name and my grandfather's together. The employees gathered for the announcement looked uncertain, many having witnessed the ugly battle that had preceded this moment. The past can't be changed, I told them. But today, we start building something new, a company founded on transparency, integrity, and true legacy. In the back of the room stood Clara, now head of our newly established foundation for elder care advocacy. Beside her, Henry, who had helped me implement financial safeguards that would prevent anyone from ever again using the company as a personal piggy bank. My father and mother were serving reduced sentences after a plea deal, 3 years for my father, 18 months for my mother. Nicholas, who had cooperated with investigators once he realized the extent of our parents' crimes, received probation and community service. He had written me a lengthy letter of apology, which I acknowledged but didn't immediately forgive. That relationship, if it were to heal at all, would take time and genuine change on his part. That evening, I visited my grandfather's grave, placing river stones instead of flowers, something solid and lasting, just as he'd taught me. The autumn wind scattered leaves around the marble headstone where I'd had his favorite phrase engraved, "Strength is earned, not given." Some people call what I did revenge. I call it restoration. In reclaiming my grandfather's legacy, I discovered my own.